I am Beverly Hathorn, leadership consultant and customer success transformation partner, your customer success transformation partner. And I just want to thank you again for joining me today. I'm very excited to speak to you about something that is really near and dear to me, and that is what happens beyond the metrics. Metrics are something that we utilize to gauge, and of course, everybody knows what gets measured gets managed. So, that's no secret. But I just want to give you something to think about here, that metrics are not the end all, do all, be all to tell you everything that's going on in your organization. Metrics are not the only thing that will tell you whether you're succeeding or you're falling behind. So, it would be great if I could see in the chat where everybody is joining us from. If you are available to chat, could you please just let me know where you're joining us from today? That'd be great. I want to just jump right in and suggest to you your metrics might sometime be giving you misindication to how your organization is doing and what's going on in your organization. So I'll start by talking about your leadership pipeline. One of the things that I like to look at leadership, even though it is a position and everybody considers that maybe a level to attain, and it is, but I look at leadership as a pipeline. I look at it more like a journey that you travel. So let's talk about when we start our leadership journey. Most of the times, sometimes that's built reactively. That pipeline is built reactively. Someone resigns or someone quits, and then we just toss the most tenured person right in there and give them that leadership position. Or maybe one of your high performers gets a little restless and wants more responsibility, or you get an ear that they're thinking of leaving and going to another organization or another business. Then we want to make sure that we hold on to that high performer. So we just maybe toss them a team lead position. But future proofing your leadership means more than that. It means building intentional systems for readiness, not just replacement. Leadership isn't just a position, as we said, it's a pipeline. And we want to be able to identify leadership opportunities early, not urgently. We want to identify that leadership potential before there's a vacancy so that we can build up that person and promote them on readiness, not just the results that they've achieved. So I have a few suggestions for attempting that. One of the things that I would suggest is that maybe you use competency models, not just job titles, to shape your potential leaders' development. And you can also consider aligning development plans with the business strategy. That way, your potential leader can be contributing to the business and contributing to bringing value to the organization as they're growing in their leadership pipeline or their leadership journey. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we always equip our leaders with emotional agility, not just technical skill. We want to help them build that self awareness and, the things that they will need to be relatable and build relationships with their teams. So, let me just ask if anyone out there has seen someone promoted or maybe themselves been promoted before they were really ready. Just give us a little idea, a sentence or two about what actually happened when that occurred. I know for myself, I was an amazing, incredible individual contributor. So I got promoted to leadership. However, I was not a leader. And while I was really good at my job, I was powerful, I was strong, I was confident, knowledgeable, skilled, reliable, all those good things, I was not a leader. So when I was promoted to leadership the very first time, I performed as a competent individual contributor. I performed as this really fantastic individual contributor. I continue to put out fires. I continue to address the escalations. I continue to build workarounds when systems weren't working. That's very dangerous, by the way, but we'll get into that later. But I continue to do all the things that I'd done as an individual contributor. However, my job now, my responsibility now, was to build a team that did those things, was to help my team understand how to perform better and how to drive that activity in my team. So as you may guess, burnout was soon to follow. Self imploded, whatever you want to call it. It was very difficult to be an individual contributor in a leadership position because as a leader, I now had leadership responsibilities. So eventually, my next level leadership took a look at things and helped get me the training and cross functional exposure that I needed to help me grow. But that is not what actually took place in the beginning. So, just want to kind of make sure that you're giving your leaders everything that they need to be successful in the beginning, not just bringing them in from where they were. How we move our leaders step by step through this pipeline. First, we start them out as individual contributor, and then we move them on to influencer, and then we're able to move them on to a people leader, and finally on to the top rung of this ladder that I've created as a strategic leader. So once we address moving our teams in that fashion, then of course we can sort of help them to be successful. We can kind of make sure that they have all the training and all the information that they need to at least get started in their new leadership journey. So, what I wanted to kind of get across to you, this ladder helps my clients spot who's ready for what and how to grow them intentionally. And if you're missing a rung on that ladder from individual contributor to strategic leader, then you might be missing an opportunity for growth for that employee or that potential leader. So, the next thing I would like to talk about is how systems sabotage our success, silently sabotage our success. When we consider systems and we consider how our leaders work within those systems, we need to be sure that we're giving our leaders and our teams systems that are impactful, systems that work, because when you're dealing with broken systems, they can sabotage even the best leaders. And sometimes it's not the people, it's the process. If there's one or two links that are broken in those systems, then the entire process will be broken. I mentioned earlier about workarounds and how difficult they can be to recover from. While we might be considering ourselves as being creative and getting the job done, sometimes workarounds cause a problem because when we're implementing those workarounds, we might be sabotaging part of the process upstream or part of the process downstream. If you make changes to the process and everybody's not a part of that change, then of course you're going to end up with a broken system. And broken systems usually lead to unhappy customers, disengaged employees, burnout, extra hard work. So we want to try to make sure that we optimize our systems. And that's one of the things that I help my clients do is to optimize their systems and make sure everything is flowing smoothly. We want to remove things that are outdated, things that don't work any longer, or things that slow us down. And we want to revamp those systems to make sure that they're working effectively and efficiently for our teams and for our leaders. I want to just kind of give just kind of put a thought in your head that sometimes leaders are blamed for poor outcomes when it's actually the systems that's not working. If no one's looking at the systems that they're operating in, we don't understand that those systems are not working for those leaders. So, a couple of key points to take away from this particular aspect of our conversation is that we need to align leadership goals with the operational systems. We need to understand what our leaderships are trying to do and the systems that they're working within, and make sure that everything's in lockstep, that everything is working together. And audit your internal processes to make sure that you avoid any friction in those leadership workloads. And again, siloed systems, i.e., workarounds, block or prevent collaboration and accountability. And then when you go to the reactive fixes, again, those are workarounds that can cause recurring and repetitive breakdowns. And just remember that success in your system becomes unsustainable. You cannot sustain success without system awareness. So we need to make sure that we're always aware of how our systems are working. And one of the things that I know a lot of people like to depend on their metrics and like to look at their metrics and kind of move with the metrics. Once again, metrics, when we have them, we know that what gets measured gets managed. But I want to give you some thoughts on how sometimes metrics can mask a deeper dysfunction in your systems or in your processes. For one thing, metrics are really just surface level success. They may suggest things are going well when things may not really be going that well. And under the surface, there could be issues that are happening beneath where you're measuring or beneath what metrics you're looking at. There might be toxic culture that's not being accounted for. There might be burnout. There could be poor communication or unclear leadership, even misalignment behind the scenes could be giving you a false confidence in what your metrics are telling you. And leaders sometimes feel assured by these numbers, but it's really just hiding some what could be some major issues. So again, I would like to try for a little audience engagement, if you could please, and just tell me about the last time that you think something failed. And do you think that it failed because it was a person, or maybe was it your system that failed you? And just let's just drop some of that in the chat, please. Just let me know what you think about that. Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. Okay, not really getting anything coming through there. Um, this is just not really what I planned for you all to have. But okay, I'm going to do my best here because I am a leader, so I'm going to keep moving. So one of the other things that I want to talk about is maybe hitting your goals on paper, but you know that there's something else wrong. And as a leader, you can kind of move through your organization and through your teams and determine, are your teams working well together? Are you getting the collaboration, and are your team members supporting each other? That is something that as a leader, we want to make sure that we're managing. We want to make sure that we're not just hitting our goals on paper. We're not just looking at the metrics. We want to make sure that we're looking at our teams, because particularly in customer success teams, that collaboration and that unity is necessary. Customer success is a very high powered and fast moving environment. And so we need to have our coworkers and our teams be able to depend on each other for support and unite. It's not a them versus us, it's a we thing. So we want to make sure that you're looking into your customer success teams and making sure that they're sharing resources, making sure that they're sharing information, and that they're supporting each other. We know that in customer success, sometimes it gets very, very difficult, and sometimes many times people get burned out, and sometimes they even get emotional about it. So we want to make sure that we're building relationships and creating teams and creating a culture where there is a psychological safety, where people can come to us and talk about the things that are not going well for them. Your customer success, your front facing people, they know what's not working in the organization. So we need to have them make sure that we've created a culture where they can come to us and they can discuss these things with us, where they can bring this information, their innovation, and their creativity. So, those are some of the things that are not unique to customer success teams, but definitely critical and valuable in customer success teams. Okay, so moving right on. Okay, I see that Arthur says system failure or lack of structure led to people failure. Yes, that definitely does happen, Arthur. And thank you for that comment because when your systems are failing and your people are working too hard, their performance is going to drop. They're going to get disengaged, frustrated, and start seeking the door. That's what your high performers will do. But also consider that those who don't perform as well will just become disengaged, and instead of looking for the exit, they'll just stay, and then they can impact your culture. They can definitely impact how your other members of your team perform, and they will definitely impact your customers, because happy employees, engaged employees promote great customer satisfaction. They just deliver a level of service that gives us that makes our customers happy and helps build that loyalty. So yes, thank you so much for that comment, Arthur. So, want to kind of move on to some of the more common sabotage points in your system. Things like onboarding, communication, of course, your metrics, recognition, escalations. All of those things have an impact to your systems and how your team and your organization functions. So you might be wondering, well, how does onboarding really impact us? So there's a couple of ways. One of the major ways that I see onboarding be problematic is when there's no clear ownership. When onboarding is either siloed or customer success leaders kind of inherit broken relationships or broken onboarding processes, then you've got unclear expectations. Nobody really knows what to expect, and nobody really knows how to move and how to push through. And so then you've got misaligned values, and now you're forcing everything into recovery mode from the very beginning, and that is not going to end well. It is possible that you can fix that, but that requires a lot more work than what should be necessary. And then again, in onboarding, you've got misaligned success definitions. Does everybody know what success looks like? Do they have clear images and content and examples to show them what success looks like? If onboarding doesn't align with the customer's goals and with the success team strategies, then it's going to implode. It's just not going to work. Customer success leaders are sometimes chasing metrics, and rightfully so, because they've been told that that's what they'll be held accountable for. But they also need to be able to drive value. And you can't do that if your onboarding process has hiccups. If the onboarding process is not good, it's also going to result in low customer confidence. If you bring those customers in from the beginning and the process is clunky, or it's impersonal, or it's disjointed, you're going to have a really difficult time building some form of trust and a relationship and your credibility with that customer. You're really already starting out from a damaged point. You're starting behind the eight ball, so to speak. So that's going to make retention and expansion a little more difficult for you. And then, of course, we know that difficult onboarding will increase the burnout cycles for your employees and for your customers. Customers get burned out as well. And so, we don't want that to be an issue that often results in poor handoffs and poor outcomes. And I don't really have to go into explaining to you, the importance of seamless transitions between maybe sales, what they've told the customer they can expect, and what they've sold the customer, and then onboarding and customer success and what the customer actually receives as a product. When customer success leaders step in to fix that, then they're fixing instead of driving the future outcomes. And so, just the bottom line is, if your onboarding process is broken, it's going to be definitely problematic. And as we said, of course, your communication needs to be clear. Your team needs to have a method for addressing or delivering to you the problems that they're encountering. There needs to be a culture where they feel comfortable in doing that. As the leader, hopefully you've built relationships where you discuss these things with your team, other than just doing the development period, or when you're delivering some form of discipline. Hopefully there's a point in time where your employees are able to come to you, your team is able to come to you and say, look, these things are broken, they're not working. And if your culture is one that promotes that psychological safety, they will not only come to you with the problems, but they'll come to you with the solutions. They'll come to you and say, things like, well, I've been looking at this and I've been watching this, and, this is where I see a problem. And I think that if we did this, this, and this, we could alleviate that. So, help talk them through that, help talk them through their suggestions for improvement, help them understand that you're open to that. Because if you shoot them down, they may not come to you again with their suggestions. And two, the other team members are watching that happen. So they will be a little more reluctant as well to come to you with those suggestions for solutions. And again, in the customer success arena, everything moves really fast, and it's very high powered, and the impact is very, very big. So when things aren't working as they should, and you lose customers, you're losing more than just that customer. You're losing that customer lifetime value. You're losing that loyalty, and that customer will definitely, in many cases, share the word about their experience with you. I used to always say, customers talk about the trains that are late. So when the onboarding process or the product that they receive is not as it was outlined initially, or if they're not getting the level of service or attention that they feel that they should get, number one, they're going to leave, but they're also going to talk about that. In this era of social media, where it's so easy to just go to your phone or to your computer and let the whole world know of your experience with ABC company. So we definitely want to make sure that we're creating teams and environments and cultures where we can all get together and talk about the things that are going wrong. And then as a unit, we can work on fixing those things. Let's move on and let's talk about the emotional intelligence and the self awareness component of our team. Emotional intelligence, I think that's a muscle that we kind of don't work enough sometimes. We're so busy chasing the metrics, as I mentioned, and sometimes the systems, and sometimes we're busy hiring and developing our team, that we don't always look at the EQ component. So let's talk about that. Emotional intelligence is it's a little more than just being nice. It means a little more than that. It's about being self-aware. It's about being situationally aware, and it's about understanding and being emotionally grounded, and understanding not just how your moves or your actions impact you, but how they impact others. And when we think of emotional intelligence, you'll see it as EQ, and that stands for emotional quotient, you'll see that that is what measures a person's ability to understand and manage their own emotions as well as the emotions of others. Basically, that's what it is. And it moves past like various skills, but it includes things like self awareness, self regulation, motivation, empathy. Empathy is a big component of EQ. Emotional intelligence. Are you empathetic to your clients and your team of what they're going through? Are you empathetic and understanding to help them move beyond any roadblocks or situations that they're experiencing? So I really think that that is crucial for building strong relationships, navigating social situations effectively, and achieving your personal and your professional goals. And it's important to help your teams to be able to do that. So, some of the key points I'd like to address here is that emotional intelligence helps us prevent overreactions in a crisis and burnout. It helps you remain calm, such as my live, what we've experienced today has been quite challenging, but I remain calm here because I know that I'll get a chance to address you again in the future. And it won't be during a storm as I'm experiencing right now. And, maybe things will go better, but you can always check me out on LinkedIn. You can always check out my website at beverlyhathornconsulting.com. And I talk about a lot of these things in both those places. So I want to move back to emotional intelligence. It does help overreaction. It does help you to stay calm in challenging situations, but it also helps strong leaders manage their self, which is what you need to do before you're managing others. You need to be able to regulate and manage yourself. And that helps you make better decisions. It makes it especially in those high stakes moments. So it helps you to remain calm. It helps you to stay confident. And so that you can take a hold of the situation instead of the situation taking a hold of you. And it will definitely let you build trust faster. It'll help you to build stronger relationships, more reliable relationships and loyalty within your team and with your peers and with your upstream and your downstream, your cross functional teams. Emotional intelligent teams and leaders communicate better. They adapt to whatever's going on, to whatever's happening, and they definitely stay engaged. So, if I still have an audience there, I'd like to know, what's one trait that you admire in a calm, emotionally intelligent leader? Maybe you're one, and what's one of the traits that you admire in yourself? And do you think emotional intelligence is something that can be learned, or is it something that's just natural? Again, to recap, emotional intelligence is self awareness, it's regulation, it's empathy, and it's remaining calm in those very stressful situations. So let's move on to the very last topic that I wanted to address with you, and that is leading in a high stakes customer success environment. We all know that customer success is one of the most demanding leadership environments. There's high expectations, things move fast, it's very emotionally charged, especially when our customers are not happy. There is the internal firefighting of the systems and the processes. There's pressure to retain and pressure to grow. You cannot just wing it here. This is not a just jump in and hit the ground running type environment. You need some sort of leadership architecture. You need clarity. You need courage. You need confidence. And all those things are non negotiables. Customer success leaders, in my opinion, need authority, not just accountability. Sometimes look at them as like I kind of look at the situation like a sandwich, sort of, and you've got the customers on the top layer, and then you've got your team on the bottom layer, and you've got the customer success leader in the middle trying to support both those areas. And you've kind of got next level leadership on the outside pushing rushing in, adding to the pressure. So customer success leaders really are, they're just incredibly strong, they're incredibly resilient, and so that those are some characteristics that they need in order to be successful. It's not just about solving problems, it's about preventing problems, it's about anticipating problems, so that when those problems do come along, you do have some map or guideline or an idea to how to move through that. They're kind of like shock absorbers, if you will, for, to add to the sandwich image I just gave you. They're kind of like shock absorbers that are between the customer pressure and the internal complexities of the organization. And they do get burned out. They work really hard. Unfortunately, that burnout is not a badge. That's not to be seen as a badge. That's a warning that there's something going wrong, that there's some really big problems happening. And they must, this is really critical, they must build cross-functional, if you will, influences. They must build influence across departments, so, and build relationships across departments, so that when they need that help, when they need that assistance, when they need those favors, for lack of a better word, they have someone to go to. But they've also created that relationship for the cross functional department, so that they as well can come across the hall and say, hey, we've got a customer in distress here. Can you help me? Or what can you do? And once again, that calmness, that clarity, that power that you exhibit during those escalation and during those moments, your team is watching. So not only are they watching you, but they will imitate you. So you want to make sure that you're showing them, and you're actually walking the talk. You want to make sure that you're doing that. So, just to kind of recap what we've talked about here today, I'm not sure if there's any questions. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I do want to kind of just give you a quick recap of what we talked about today. We've talked about future proofing your leadership pipeline, how you will identify potential leaders before there's a vacancy, before there's a problem. You want to identify them not urgently, and you want to promote your team leaders based on readiness, not just the results that they've shown. You want to make sure that you align your development plans as you're building those leaders with the business strategy or with the organization strategy, so that as you're building those leaders and they're going through those steps from individual contributor all the way up to strategic leader, as they're going through those steps, they're adding value to the organization. They're moving the organization forward. You want to make sure that your systems, aren't silently sabotaging you underneath. Misaligned processes, they create friction that you may not always be able to see until it's too late. Friction causes a fire, and sometimes you don't see it until it's a fire. Silo systems, what we like to call workarounds, we think that's being creative and getting the job done, but sometimes that as well will cause a lot of problems, because it then blocks collaboration and it causes the process to fall apart. And then there's no accountability. Reactive fixes. That also equals recurring breakdowns in your systems, and then success becomes just absolutely unsustainable when you've got all of this going on, or even some of this. And we also talked about the emotional intelligence and the self awareness that is necessary for your customer success leaders and your customer success teams. Strong leaders manage themselves before they start to manage others. They have empathy, they have understanding, they build relationships, they go from they don't lean towards the red, which is chaos. They lean towards the green, which is strategic thinking, the strategic movement. And they are self aware, so that they build trust faster. Definitely, they build relationships that form a culture where everybody can thrive, not just function. Everybody's thriving. And then lastly, what does it really take to be able to function in these high impact, sometimes stressful organizations in this customer success arena. So think about, it's not just about solving problems as they occur, it's about anticipating problems so that you can put stop gaps and processes in place to prevent those problems. It's about creating a culture where your employees and your team is able to come and present problems and situations that they've encountered as problematic and be able to give you suggestions and their creativity and their innovation for helping you get around this so that we can deliver what we're here to deliver, which is satisfaction and success to our customers. It's definitely clarity and courage and calm are some characteristics that you need to be able to function in such a high pressure environment, because sustainable leaders build sustainable systems, and that will make our organization successful. So, I do want to make sure that we're able to keep this conversation going. You can definitely contact me for a strategy call. I do have a few free gifts for you. If you'd like to receive those, you can DM me. What I have is a checklist for customer success, operations, and sustainable growth. I have a leadership health scorecard that you can use to kind of position against your leadership and see how you're doing, get an idea of how you're doing. I also have a free audio. It's on my website. It's called Unstoppable Systems. And it kind of talks about what we went over today, some of the things that you need to build sustainable leadership in a customer success organization. So, thank you so much. You have been amazing. If there are any other questions or comments, I'll be happy to take them offline. Since we're having some technical difficulties, I'll be happy to take them offline. You can reach me at my website. It is beverlyhathornconsulting.com. You can reach me via email, which is beverly@customermeasures.com, or you can just reach me on LinkedIn. I'm there all day, every day. And I would be happy to hear from you. Let me know what you thought about the live. Let me know what you thought about the content, the presentation, any questions that you might have. And if you'd like to talk and, just kind of, strategize about your leadership or your organization and, see what we can do to help move you forward.